to find my libretto, the text first. That's where I start. I don't start with images. I start with the text because I am Orwell in that sense. For me, it was clear that Orwell had to tell the story himself. You can have more impactful and stronger connection when it's the author himself who's telling the story. It was also my learning process with Baldwin. You can't top Baldwin telling the story himself. Whatever how good you are. So I knew I could risk that with Orwell as well, and that's when I went throughout his work and start putting a story together, because I don't do, contrary to what some people think, that I don't just put the clips one after the other. No, there is a very clear story I'm telling. In that case, that was the story of a man in his 40s who knows he's going to die and is struggling to finish his novel. That's the simple bottom line story. And that story, of course, enabled me to digress and go everywhere in his work, to use everything else he said, he wrote and or lived through. It's an indirect biography. I don't do biography, because a biography, you can watch it once and that's it.
Yeah.
But a film like this one, you can watch it multiple times because you will discover different things each time. I leave different layers of storylines. Some are easy to see and others needs more time for you to sometimes to understand. So the text is always the key. And the story, I'm telling a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, so that I don't lose my viewer. And everything else participate in that, what I would call graphics, the sounds, every different sound that we work through. Nothing in this film is just random. I didn't have those images and say, I'm going to find Orwell, what Orwell said about that. No, I'm trying to put myself in Orwell's shoes. So he's the guiding line.
And his prescience is eerie. Even as saying that as someone who has read the book a bunch of times, it is eerie to listen to his words and have them feel so current. So just to give you an example, obviously this film has been in the works for some time, but as a news reporter, I have been covering, for instance, the way the Trump administration has been approaching the defense secretary's job. Okay, it's the Department of Defense. Now it's called the Department of War.
It's directly out of 1984.
War is peace. And in the version we hear, peace is strength. Hearing these very sort of blunt rewrites to reorient Americans towards a different idea has been kind of, frankly, jarring for a lot of people. And I was wondering if you've had any moments like that yourself, just in the last week or two, where you heard and thought, feels familiar.
I can tell you the big part of my life, but also the last 4 years where we have been working on this film. And at one point we had to stop following the actuality, because it's unending. We had every day more example, but I knew that more efficient was to make a film that would stay whatever the time. And in fact, in my mind, I thought the film would be finished when Kamala Harris would be president. And even if Kamala Harris was president, this film would have been as important as it is today.
Say more.
Because that's the thing. We cannot just see the big bully and ignore where it came from. It's the same that Orwell analyzed. Orwell went through that. He was working at the BBC during the war. So he knew, he said, in a very humorous way, because I like that, his humor at time, where he said, well, I think while working at the BBC, the propaganda was less idiotic than it could have been, than it was. He's very conscious.
He is. He's very self-aware.
Yeah, he's
very self-aware.
So the toolbox that he basically analyzed It's the exact same toolbox. When you say that, well, we are always in a hurry to see what the others are doing to us, but we refuse to see what we are doing to the others. And he had, and without bothering to see the arguments, and we are in the middle of that.
We'll be right back with more from director Raoul Peck.
Introducing your new Dell PC with the Intel Core Ultra processor. It helps you handle a lot, even when your holiday to-do list gets to be a lot. Like organizing your holiday shopping and searching for great holiday deals, and customer questions and customers requesting custom things, plus planning the perfect holiday dinner for vegans, vegetarians, pescatarians, and Uncle Mike's carnivore diet. Luckily, you can get a PC with all-day battery life to help you get it all done. That's the power of a Dell PC with Intel inside, backed by Dell's price match guarantee. Get yours today at Dell.com/deals. Terms and conditions apply. See Dell.com for details.
Tailgating without Pepsi this football season? That'd be like playing football without pads. You could do it, but I wouldn't. Or like watching the Steelers without a "Here we go" chant. It's just not the same. Your tailgate's kielbasa is good, but kielbasa paired with a crisp, refreshing Pepsi Zero Sugar? That's a game changer. Steelers Nation, stock up on Pepsi Zero Sugar at Giant Eagle today, because tailgating deserves Pepsi.
You talked about the idea of if those in power push one door, they're going to push another. What do you see in the response or lack of response in the communities that are dealing with this, or even our culture writ large?
Well, that's one of the impact of all those movements, is that it did create fear, create personal fear, because you feel very, very lonely. You feel alone because they detach you from your group, from your reference. That's a human behavior to say, oh my God, they came to take my neighbor, but I'm fine so far. And not going to the neighbor and say, neighbor, what can we do together? Unite your neighbors and say, I don't want them to come next week and do that to all of us. The civil rights movement, what was it? It was people coming together, churches, not only Black, Jewish communities, white communities, students, intelligence, academia, sample people, garbage union. It was part of the society deciding we're not going to accept more, and we have to find a way to do it. And I was reminding students, I was at Yale, I was at Columbia talking to students. I said, that generation, they, your age, they were willing to go to the South knowing they were risking their lives. And some of them did die. Some of them were arrested, tortured, and killed. And we don't remember our own history, where citizens started to sit down together and talk, because there is no response that will just come up like this. We need to make sure that we understand each other and that we are taking that risk together, and to say it's stop, and then let's rewind the statu quo. Let's go further and make sure that this will never happen again.
You're raising the question of where is, for instance, Black leadership, or when you maybe also women's groups, when you're talking about the idea that there has been a kind of erasure of gains and civil rights for these communities. What do you mean? And who do you think could be speaking up that isn't?
As an example, even the words are eliminated. One of the first things they did, you cannot use, I don't know the number, maybe 300 or 400 words. You cannot use them. They took them down from official website.
Like diversity, equity, or inclusion are probably some good examples.
Most absurd. It sounds innocent. It's even sound ridiculous. But that's play with your minds. And so that's a regression. And some people think I've heard that argument. Well, it's the return of the balance, we will catch up in the midterms or the next thing. No, that's unprecedented. It's not, return to the status quo. It's already impossible. And by the way, I've been in government. I know what it means to destroy because I know how long it takes to have a law vote, how much discussion, how many commission, etc. It takes you 3, 4, 5 years to change a law. And now in one decree, it's gone. And you are destroying everything that have taken decades to establish. So people should understand what's going on. It's not a game. It's not funny. Everyone, wherever they are, journalists, scholars, they have to understand they have their jobs, but they are also citizens. They are part of the civil society. So, and the civil society as such need to give a response, because I don't think that the majority of Americans agree with what's going on.
One of the things I have heard, particularly from conservative voices, sounds a lot like this. Democrats and progressives and liberal people have engaged in their own kind of thought policing and groupthink. And you hear this even most frequently around the conversation around trans rights. That the idea of saying that this is a man, not a woman, is saying 2 + 2 = 5. And this is not my belief, but I hear it very frequently that there was a group of people out there who felt like they were responding to a kind of thought policing that was being imposed on them, particularly from civil rights advocates in various areas. How do you hear that criticism, given, what you've studied the last few years?
Well, that's usual, the same thing. By the way, the people who are saying that, it's the excuse. Because even though it might be true, because every movement have moments of exaggeration. That's how it goes. If the feminists did not make noise, there would have never been change. But that's how change goes. There are always a group, and usually a smaller group, who are much more radical than the bigger group. But if you try now to choose that radical group as an excuse to erase everything, your agenda is a totally different agenda. And by the way, when you see how long it took to Black people to get change, that same people have been saying, oh, you have to be patient. I would agree with you. Yes, there are, the whole thing with putting in every email, he, hers, them. I didn't do that because I feel that's not how I am. I'm very progressive and I respect each individual, but I don't have to obey to any injunction. My work speaks for me.
And I asked because now you have groups like, I remember I think it was the think tank Third Way, I'm not sure, but came out with a list of words that they said, Democrats, you should really stop using these words. These alienate the voters. And that battle over language came back to me again as I was watching the film.
Yeah, well, indeed, it's a battle, but you have to ask yourself, what is the result you are looking for? Are you looking for every person to accept the thinking behind it? Or you just need the fake surface of it? It's like you're obliging people to do certain things without those people even understanding why. It doesn't make sense. In fact, you're going to create more enemy to your cause. That's not very intelligent. And there are people sometimes on the radical side who are really drunk of their power, drunk by the fact that, they find that this is change, this is progress. Yes, but progress, you have to bring the whole society with you. It's not progress for your little tribe. It has to be wider, and it's not about aggressing people.
Yeah, and we're in this moment where we have ICE, Customs Enforcement, landing in cities with the support of the military. And so we're actually starting to see action on the ground. And it is easy in a way to hear those justifications for that action. Well, there was a riot here, all of the ways that you can kind of rationalize something that maybe doesn't quite feel right.
My colleague and co-producer Alex Gibney was saying yesterday at the Q&A, he went to Russia to make a film on Navalny. And he said, at one point, he went through, on both sides, there were agent, police, their badge were covered with black tape, and they had a mask. And he said he remember saying to himself, oh my God, this would not be possible in the United States. And this is what, a lot of people are experiencing every day. People with their names erased, with mask, with no real identity, and just take you in a car and bring you to a prison. This is how quick things can change. I'm sure a lot of Americans never thought that you would see that in the streets of America, And I remember coming to DC recently, and there were 4 armored cars at the train station. But for me, it meant something else, because I remember when there is a coup d'etat, you start seeing tanks everywhere, militaries in the streets. A lot of people in the world understand that language. And to see it happening here, to turn soldiers, to make partisans out of them, and they turn their rifle toward your own population, this is scary. When it happened elsewhere, this is a clear sign that something is wrong here. And if you ask the military themselves, I don't think they feel at ease. Their whole training is against that. They are not trained to turn their rifle toward people that are maybe the parents or their colleagues. That's totally absurd. We shouldn't play with that. It's not a game. It's not a rehearsal. It's reality. 2 + 2 = 4.
Well, Raoul Peck, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you.
Raoul Peck is the director of the documentary Orwell 2 + 2 = 5 about the life of George Orwell. That's out now. I want to thank you for listening to this conversation, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but Mint's premium wireless is $15 a month. But I'd like to offer one other perk. We have no stores. That means no small talk. Crazy weather we're having. No, it's not. It's just weather. It is an introvert's dream. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
I'm criminal psychologist Dr. Michelle Ward, and on season 7 of Mind of a Monster, we're bringing you the story of Kristen Gilbert.
We think that Kristen Gilbert is the most prolific mass murderer on the East Coast.
The very person responsible for keeping you alive, your nurse, is secretly killing you.
She said to the nurse manager, "If this guy dies, can I go home?"
Listen to Mind of a Monster, The Killer Nurse, wherever you get your podcasts.
On Wednesday morning, the U.S. government shut down. Federal employees are furloughed, many of them under threat of firing. And the off-ramp to this traffic jam? What off-ramp?
We're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing.
Donald Trump is causing the shutdown. This is a Trump shutdown. The Schumer shutdown that is looming is a Democratic choice. I don't know how they get out of this.
Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They have decided to shut the government down.
When Republican Congressman Mike Lawler defeated Sean Patrick Maloney, a Democrat, in 2022, it sent a shockwave from New York to Washington. The upset helped secure Republicans a majority they still enjoy today. And he's here to tell us how he plans to navigate the shutdown and help Republicans keep control of the House next fall. I'm David Chalian, CNN's political director and Washington bureau chief, and this is the CNN Political Briefing. Congressman Lawler, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant.
Whoa, that's refreshing.
And a 9.5 plus pH for every way you move.
I did take a Spain class today.
Restoring like a pro. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
Now we are in this government shutdown. Where are we in terms of how long you, in talking to your colleagues, think this may last, or what a possible path out of this may be?
I think it's going to last as long as Chuck Schumer allows it to last. I mean, this is the Schumer shutdown. He has reversed every previous position he's ever held when it comes to government shutdowns, and is now demanding things in exchange for keeping the government open and funded. I have been very consistent and clear in this. Whether Republicans have done it in the past or Democrats are doing it now, it's wrong. It's wrong to hold the American people hostage. It's wrong to hold the economy hostage. It's wrong to create this unnecessary chaos in our federal government, all because you didn't win an election and you don't get your way 100% of the time. The fact is that there is a clean CR sitting in the Senate that has already passed the House, that 3 Democrats have already voted for in the Senate. It just takes 5 more, and we can open up the government and avoid this entire discussion any further so that we can get about finalizing fiscal year 26 appropriations and addressing issues like the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which I have already co-sponsored legislation to extend by a year, and I am open to further negotiation on that. But I think this idea that you're just going to shut the government down in perpetuity until you get your way is foolhardy. It has never worked. It doesn't work when Republicans do it, and it's certainly not going to work when Democrats do it.
But if indeed, as the Democrats like to say, like the Republicans are in charge of the House, the Senate, the presidency, given all the levers of power on your side of the aisle, is there some responsibility to engage in a negotiation to get the government back open on some of these points that the Democrats are looking for?
There were 13 CRs under Joe Biden.
Which I should just say for folks, that's a continuing resolution. These are stopgap funding bills that sort of keep spending at previously agreed upon levels.
Right. There were 13 of them under Joe Biden, and Republicans like me voted for them to keep them open. I voted for 8 CRs under Joe Biden to keep the government open and funded. This CR is based on spending levels that were agreed to under Joe Biden's presidency. So this idea that there should have been a negotiation, that Democrats didn't get what they want in here. These are spending levels by a Democratic president. These are policy writers by a Democratic president. And all that they have done is shut down the government and, frankly, give more authority to the executive, because there's no funding and there's no approval of programs or agencies and departments. And so the executive has a lot of leeway here. So from my vantage point, they're very stupid.
Tell me what you mean by that, more authority to the executive.
Well, when you don't have funding, David, how are you supposed to actually continue appropriations? When you don't have authorities and approvals of these programs, legally, how do you actually continue them? So to me, this is a very foolish endeavor by the Democrats, especially if they feel the executive branch has taken too much authority. They've actually literally just given OMB and the executive a lot of authority. So to me, this is a very stupid thing that they have entered into, and they're going to regret it.
One of those potential authorities, speaking of OMB, Russell Vought, the director, spoke about, and it seemed in some of President Trump's language, he sort of agreed with this notion that there could be permanent firing some of the furloughed government workers here, permanently losing their job. Is that an action you support?
I don't, and I said I didn't support it when the OMB memo came out. But this is what happens as a result of Democrats being unwilling to pass a clean CR. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi have long been on record lecturing America, lecturing Republicans about the need to keep the government funded and open, not hold the American people hostage, not inflict unnecessary pain on the American people or cause chaos in our economy. And yet that's exactly what they are doing right now. And so there's a very simple way to avoid all of this. Pass the CR that is sitting in the Senate.
Right. I take that point. That's not where they are right now. When you say that you opposed that when the OMB memo came out, and you said you opposed that, and I heard your colleague in the other body, Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota today said there's a real potential political backlash risk, and spoke specifically about people in competitive districts like you potentially that need some wiggle room here. I'm wondering, have you gotten on the phone with the White House? Have you told them that that is not an action they should take, that they should back off from that threat?
Look, I've had many conversations with the administration and with my House leadership, obviously, about these issues. But again, to me, this is very easy to avoid all of it. And it is to just do the job we were elected to do, which is to pass a CR and keep the government funded and open. House Republicans have already passed all 12 appropriations bills through committee. We are ready to negotiate with the Senate and the administration. There's no reason to shut the government down while you're trying to deal with all these other issues.
I hear you. I just, if you're John Thune and Chuck Schumer says, okay, but you're not going to get those votes, and the goal is eventually to get the government back open and working for the American people, do you have to adjust your approach in some way to get those Democratic votes, is the question.
Did Chuck Schumer adjust?
I'm not asking about Chuck Schumer.
No. Did he adjust his position in 2019 in the first?
I know, but I'm asking
Trump
about this shutdown right now.
I understand, David, but past his prologue. And so the question is, if your position is that I'm going to keep the government shut down unless you acquiesce to my list of demands, why would anybody do that? There is zero reason to negotiate with Chuck Schumer, given his past positioning on this. So from my vantage point, no. And I don't think there's a single Republican willing to do that. We've passed a clean CR. It's time for the Senate to act, pass the CR, open up the government, and then let's finish our negotiation.
Let's take a quick break. We'll have a lot more with Congressman Mike Lawler of New York in just a moment.
Have I got news for your ears? The podcast. I am your host, Michael Ian Black. It's impossible, though, to know what he actually believes about anything. Right. Whether he really thinks Portland is burning or whether he's just saying that. There's a lot of talk about the police maybe fighting the National Guard.
Yes.
Maybe it's like, maybe the FedEx guys are going to be fighting the UPS guys. Have I Got News for Your Ears releases new episodes every Wednesday. Don't miss an episode. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts.
We're back with Congressman Mike Lawler, Republican of New York. Congressman, you had mentioned about Chuck Schumer's demands here. I mean, it seems that the one big request, demand, point of contention that Democrats seem to be pointing to is this issue of health care subsidies on the Obamacare exchange, potentially nearly doubling for millions of Americans and millions of other Americans perhaps getting kicked off of health insurance altogether. I know that these subsidies don't expire until the end of the calendar year of December 31st, but that seems to be the thing they're asking for a negotiation on right now. You yourself, I remember in the spring, like when the One Big Beautiful Bill was being debated, you came on CNN, you did it. You had real concerns you were expressing about the healthcare implications of that bill that you eventually supported. Do you see a path where there's an actual real negotiation for the Democrats if indeed they were to give their votes to reopen the government?
Oh, look, you have a number of Republican members of the House that have already signed on to legislation to extend the ACA subsidies by a year. Leader Thune is on record saying that they are open to a negotiation over this particular issue. Obviously, you have to look at the facts here. The ACA subsidy was put in place during COVID because a number of people were losing their health coverage because their businesses were being shut down. They were losing their jobs. This was intended to help people through that crisis.
The enhanced subsidy, right?
The enhanced subsidy.
Right.
It was slated to expire at the end of this year. So this is obviously a key discussion point. We don't want to have anybody get sticker shock. We don't want to have people get a massive increase in their health care premiums. But you don't shut the government down over this. That is a negotiation to be had during the appropriations process, which, again, the objective here is keep the government open and funded through November 21st, negotiate the appropriations package, and deal with the healthcare subsidies then. But let me just point out, there's more to their list of demands than just that, including on rescissions, as well as trying to reverse many aspects of the tax bill that was put in place. They want to eliminate the $50 billion rural health fund, and they do want to provide health care to illegal immigrants. And the fact is, I'm happy to go through that chapter and verse.
Please, I think it would be helpful if you did. Can you explain to me exactly how an undocumented immigrant here who is not eligible for Medicaid benefits, who is not eligible for subsidies on the Obamacare exchange, how are they getting taxpayer-funded free health care, separate and apart, obviously, from showing up at an emergency room, which is going to provide care at an emergency room? That happens, and that happens whether federal funds are there or not. So I'm talking about federally funded programs.
You have emergency Medicaid, obviously, which has been in existence for a very long time. And of course, the hospitals are duty bound to treat people. So right there, obviously, you have people who are here illegally getting health benefits through that, number one. Number two.
But wait, that happens irrespective of this, correct?
I understand, but correct.
Okay.
But that does happen. So
but it has
let's
nothing to
stop
do with
acting.
this point that you're saying about that they are.
I know. So let me walk through. But I think it's important that people actually understand it already happens. Okay. So this notion that Democrats are saying, no, it doesn't. They don't get any benefits. That's a lie.
Obviously, I just stated that as a fact. Yeah.
Two, when you look at New York State, okay, Kathy Hochul came to Congress and testified over the summer. And I asked her point blank, do you support giving taxpayer-funded health benefits to illegals? And she tried to hem and haw, and I pressed her on her expansion of Medicaid in New York, okay, and what they did to allow illegal immigrants to get Medicaid benefits in New York, spending billions of dollars. And she admitted that they did it. Governor, yes or no, do you support illegal immigrants getting taxpayer-funded health care? Yes or no?
We provide health care to people in need, including moms with new babies.
Do you support giving illegal immigrants taxpayer-funded health care? Yes or no?
We support giving support.
The answer
for
is yes. You expanded health care access in 2024
Yes, I did.
under Medicaid.
For senior citizens.
Governor, after
and
the
moms with
election,
new
you
babies.
said,
I would do it all
reclaiming
over
my
again.
time. Governor, after the election, you said, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have this position that, no, it doesn't happen. We are against this. Then they should pick up the phone and call Kathy Hochul immediately.
But do you mean you're saying in New York currently there are undocumented immigrants who are allowed to get Medicaid benefits, Medicare benefits, and get Obamacare exchange subsidies? Because that's against federal law.
Correct. Go look at what New York has done.
But it's against current federal law, right?
Well, isn't that the fundamental problem? Kathy Hochul literally came and testified before Congress. I asked her very explicitly, and she admitted that they did it. So this is the fundamental problem. Go look at California. Go look at New York. They have spent billions of dollars. And by the way, and I'll give you another case in point, if Democrats want to talk about health care, Tom DiNapoli, the Democratic comptroller of New York State, just came out with a report 2 weeks ago about how New York spent $1.2 billion on non-New York State residents' Medicaid premiums. How is that even possible? How is that happening? And yet it did. So if they're serious about cleaning up this program, if they're serious about protecting health care for Americans and making sure that Americans' health care premiums aren't skyrocketing, then they should be working with us to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. And if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are so confident in their position that they are not trying to give illegals health care benefits under Medicaid, then they should join me in calling on Kathy Hochul and New York State Democrats to reverse what they have done in New York.
And Congressman, when President Trump puts out on his social media these racist memes of putting Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero and putting a mustache on his face, that is part of this debate that we're talking about right now, do you think that helps the cause or hurts the cause?
Look, I think it's a distraction, and I think obviously you guys in the press and certainly Hakeem Jeffries have spent an inordinate amount of time focused on those memes and what is on social media, as opposed to what the substance of the issue is here. So to me, that's a distraction.
It's a distraction that the President of the United States has injected into the conversation.
Right, and you all fall for it, hook, line, and sinker every time.
Well, it's not about us falling for it. I mean, he's putting that out. You don't.
But you're covering it.
But does that? Do you think that?
Do you understand? Do you understand why he does it? And then you guys fall for it. Like, to me, it's a distraction. Focus on the substance of the issue.
You are a fascinating political animal to me because you're one of 3 Republicans who sit in a district that Kamala Harris won. Of your other cohort there, you know, one is retiring, one actually voted against the big beautiful bill. So you all have a sort of different positioning here. You must know a Harris-Lawler voter. I would imagine you've come across one. Oh, yeah. And I'm wondering if you could describe to me, in your, like, given so many of them exist in your district, obviously, what is that voter? What does a Harris-Lawler voter look like?
Well, to give you context on my district, it's definitely a fascinating one. It is primarily suburban, immediate suburbs north of New York City, Westchester County, Rockland. It's home to the Clintons, George Soros, so by no means a Republican bastion. There's about 80,000 more Democrats than Republicans in the district. 50% of adults have a college degree or higher. Yet 50% of households in my district have a cop, a firefighter, or a veteran living in the household. So it's affluent and educated, yet blue-collar working class. 19% of my district is Latino. I have the largest Jewish population anywhere in the country. So it's very diverse, different issues, different concerns. But I think, you know, look, primarily it's people who are very focused on the substance of issues. They may be, you know, more socially liberal and more fiscally conservative. You know, Westchester County used to be heavily Republican. Over the last 2 decades, it's definitely trended more Democratic. Rockland, you know, blue collar has moved rightward. Trump's biggest gains were in Rockland County nationwide, and he won the Orthodox Jewish vote overwhelmingly. He did well in the Jewish
Have you ever heard a voter explain why they voted for you and for Kamala Harris last year on the same ballot?
Yeah, they may not like the president personally and disagree with, you know, his approach, but they appreciate the fact that I show up, that I engage in bipartisanship, that I focus on the substance of these issues. I had 11 bills passed last Congress, 6 of which were signed into law by Joe Biden. I did over 1,200 in-district events. So a lot of it is personal and the personal connection from me showing up. Today I did an event in district with about 150 seniors in a housing complex, and a lot of Democrats there asking me a lot of questions. By the end of it, they said, I really appreciate that you showed up and answered our questions. That's the difference, you know, in a lot of these races.
And my final question for you on this is, looking ahead to your reelection effort next year, what would you say are the 3 single biggest factors that are likely to determine whether you get reelected or whether you lose the seat?
The economy obviously is number one. I think obviously the issue of affordability, people are highly focused on that. They want to see the economy move in the right direction. I think the tax bill, when people actually understand all of the key elements of the tax bill and recognize that they're going to see a massive tax cut, especially in my district where state and local taxes are high, the increased SALT cap is going to mean a lot for folks. And then I think a lot of these foreign policy issues. I'm chair of the Middle East and North Africa subcommittee. Obviously, the situation in the Middle East is of keen interest to a lot of my constituents, and that certainly matters to a lot of folks in my district. So, look, there's a lot of issues. I think what people most appreciate about me, I am not afraid to say where I stand. I talk to everybody. I go on every network and answer the questions. And I think people appreciate the fact that you show up and you're fighting for them. And that's what I'll continue to do.
Well, I certainly appreciate you spending some time with me today on this podcast. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's edition of the CNN Political Briefing. We'll be back with a new episode next Friday. Thanks so much for listening.
News fatigue? Have I got news for you is the cure and also the disease. CNN's comedy quiz show is back, making sense of the mayhem and definitely adding to it. Have I got news for you? Saturday at 9 on CNN.
Washington, D.C. is bracing for a government shutdown. Federal funding runs out on Tuesday. And instead of furiously hammering out negotiations, President Trump abruptly canceled them, leaving Democrats and Republicans to blame each other for the impasse.
Instead of working with Republicans to fund the government through a clean, nonpartisan, continuing resolution, Democrats are yielding to the desires of their rabidly leftist base.
Democrats do not support the partisan Republican spending bill because it continues to gut the health care of the American people.
Joining me today is Congresswoman Susan DelBene of Washington State. She's head of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, known here as the DCCC, working to elect Democrats to the House in next year's midterms. She'll break down her party's decision to fight the Trump agenda and her plan to retake the majority. I'm David Chalian, CNN's political director and Washington, D.C. bureau chief, and this is the CNN Political Briefing. Congresswoman DelBene, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Tailgating without Pepsi this football season? That'd be like playing football without pads. You could do it, but I wouldn't. Or like watching the Steelers without a "Here we go" chant. Here we go! It's just not the same. Your tailgate's kielbasa is good, but kielbasa paired with a crisp, refreshing Pepsi Zero Sugar? That's a game changer. Steelers Nation, stock up on Pepsi Zero Sugar at Giant Eagle today, because tailgating deserves Pepsi.
You and I are talking on Thursday afternoon as we record this, and we are ticking down here to when the government runs out of money at the end of September 30th. And I am just wondering, from your perspective inside the House of Representatives, do you see an off-ramp at this moment in time to this conflict that the government may actually stay open and be funded?
You know, Republicans aren't even interested in coming to the table. Donald Trump said that he would meet with the Democratic leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the Senate, Senator Schumer, and then he canceled that and said there's no need to talk. Republicans are not even calling members of Congress back to Washington, D.C. to focus on making sure there's a path forward. We're coming back to D.C. because we know it's important to continue to fight for the American people. But Republicans seem like they're happy to lead us into a shutdown right now.
It also seems that both the Democrats and the Republicans are trying to sort of lay the groundwork here for which party will get the bulk of the political blame if indeed the government does shut down. I hear from you and all of your colleagues this constant refrain that Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. But isn't it true that Republicans alone cannot keep the government open, given that they need 60 votes in the Senate? So to keep the government open, Democrats do have to participate. And isn't there some risk for your party if you say no to that participation and people are financially hurt by it?
Well, absolutely. It's always been true that a bipartisan solution is what moves us forward. Republicans are in charge of everything, and they know that, and yet they are unwilling to even sit at a table and talk about what we're hearing from the American people. The American people are struggling because costs are going up because of Republican policies. Healthcare costs skyrocketing because of Republican policies. These are the issues that we're hearing on the ground across the country. And so our job as representatives is to stand up for our communities and talk about what we can do to make sure we have a strong path going forward into next year. Republicans don't even want to have that conversation. And it turns out that the fiscal year always ends on September 30th. This is work that should have been happening months ago. These conversations, Republicans kind of ignored that, walked to the end, and now they're not even interested in being in Washington, D.C. to have a conversation about what we can do to make sure we have that bipartisan support. There is nothing new. They're uninterested. It's do whatever we say or we're not going to talk. And unfortunately, whatever they say is lead us into a shutdown and continue creating more damage for working families.
You were certainly right that the September 30th deadline, the end of the fiscal year, is not a surprise date to anyone. I guess my question is, given what you've just said about healthcare and fighting to protect your communities, how does a government shutdown help bring down healthcare costs for your constituents and for Americans across the country?
Let's be clear, the reason that healthcare costs are going up is because of Republican policies. Rubber stamping those policies doesn't lower costs for American families. What lowers
But how does a shutdown actually improve?
We should be working on a deal. That's why we're going back to DC to try to work on a deal. We've always been trying to get to the table to make sure we have policies that support families across the country. Republicans aren't interested in coming to the table. To them, it's blind loyalty to Donald Trump. Whatever he says goes. You know, if Republicans talk to people in their communities, they would hear from folks that they are scared about healthcare costs going up, that they are scared about food and housing, that Republicans promised to lower costs, and they've broken that promise over and over again. But talk to people on the ground. That's what we've been doing, and people across the country want to make sure that we are protecting healthcare. Republicans are ripping it apart.
Are you hearing from any of your frontline members, you know, the most vulnerable Democrats, Democrats that either in districts that Donald Trump won in 2024 or, you know, just very close, evenly divided districts, concern that there may be some political blowback if indeed the government does shut down, that despite your messaging efforts here and elsewhere, that voters may take some issue? And are you hearing from any of your colleagues on the Democratic side any concern about heading towards a potential shutdown?
In battleground districts across the country, recent data showed that 72% of voters support making sure the premium tax credits that help keep costs low for folks who buy their health insurance on the exchange, 72% of voters want to see those continued. I think what you see from our members, across, even our members in battleground districts, is they are listening to their communities. And that's why they were elected. We even have 14 Democrats who were elected in districts that Donald Trump also won in, because they are strong, independent-minded voices for their community. They're listening to their communities, and their communities are saying they're trying to rip away healthcare. Do something about that. That's just one example. Costs are going up. Do something about that. That's what we're trying to do, but Republicans refuse to engage. And again, Republicans in Congress seem incapable of doing anything to have a voice and to stand up for their communities. It's blind loyalty to Donald Trump.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to have a lot more with the DCCC Chairwoman Susan DelBene from Washington State in just a moment.
Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at RE Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With a new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Congresswoman, you are charged with winning back the majority for Democrats in 2026, and history would suggest that is a pretty good assignment for someone in your shoes when Republicans control the White House, the House, the Senate. History suggests in those midterms, the out party tends to make significant gains. The margins in the House obviously are so very narrow, and yet what we're seeing is Democrats significantly overperforming in all these special elections, another indicator that 2026 could be a good year for Democrats. But we're also seeing the Democratic brand at all-time lows in terms of favorability, real concerns among Democrats themselves about Democratic Party leadership, some real sort of generational divides that we are seeing inside your party. And I'm just wondering, how do you balance those two things? That history and the electoral evidence so far this year should suggest good news for you guys, but that there still seems to be concern among voters about Democrats being a party capable of leading.
First of all, I think Republicans do have a microscopic majority, and that's because we actually picked up seats last cycle. Families are upset. People are upset. They are angry about what's happening. You know, the focus of Republicans on the wealthy and the well-connected when their number one issue, and why folks voted for Republicans and voted for Donald Trump last time, was the number one issue was they thought he promised to lower costs on day one. That is a big, big broken promise. Costs are rising between the big ugly bill, tariffs, ripping away health care, nothing to help families, only to pay for tax breaks for the wealthiest and the well-connected. So that's why when you look at the generic ballot out there right now, when you talk to folks across the country, why in the special elections we've seen since November of 2024, Democrats are running 15 points ahead. People want those strong representatives who are going to stand up for them. And we're going to fight for that in these districts across the country. And remember, in the House, these are very local elections. These are individual districts across the country. We have great candidates. We win.
It's interesting for me to hear you say that they are local elections. Usually it is sort of the president's party that stresses that the president is not a sort of overhang for his party on an election. Does that mean when I hear you say they're local elections, you don't intend to sort of nationalize and utilize Donald Trump's unpopularity as a major campaign theme throughout this next year?
Well, remember, we're fighting these in these purple districts across the country. We have 35 districts across the country where we are on offense. And those 35 districts across the country, they're in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Kentucky, Tennessee. And when you start looking at these districts, each area has its own unique needs. I'd say absolutely across the country. The high cost of living, how Republicans have raised costs for families, they're gutting healthcare across the country, are national issues. But they're also very local issues across the country. And why when we have strong candidates who are speaking to that, who understand that, that's how we win. And definitely in the midterms, there is a presidential at the top of the ticket. This is really a focus on these individual districts across the country.
You've talked a lot about affordability. You think prices clearly, if I'm hearing you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, that is the turf on which you think this 2026 battle for the House will be fought and determined. We've heard from President Trump recently. He thinks 2026, and he's clearly trying to do what he can to create this environment, is going to be about crime and immigration and border security. You do not believe that issue matrix is going to be as prominent as the president believes it will be?
The top issue for folks, and it was last election cycle too, are pocketbook issues. The number one issue for families is, can I put a roof over our heads? Can I put food on the table? These are the concerns folks have, understandably. Housing, food, healthcare, childcare, energy costs, everything going up since President Trump took office. Republicans have not stood up in Congress, have not stood up for their communities, costs going up, and it's their policies that are doing it. It's tariffs that have been raising costs of food, raising costs of housing. These are taxes on working families across the country. The big ugly bill they passed, ripping away healthcare from millions of people. People are going to see premiums go up for next year, double-digit increases in premiums. Republicans aren't extending the premium tax credits. That means in my state, for example, 65% increase for folks who get their health care in exchange. Our state estimates that 80,000 people will lose health care just because that alone. These are all things that are a result of Republican policies. People are feeling that. The reason it resonates is because people feel it. That's what they're going through right now at home.
On fundraising, you are besting your Republican counterparts at the NRCC. You've got more cash on hand. You've raised more in 2025. That also seems to be, or at parity at least, a similar story in some of those metrics on the Senate side. Where it does not seem to be the case is when you look at the DNC versus the RNC. And I'm wondering if you are concerned or have had conversations with Chairman Ken Martin that the Democratic National Committee is so far lagging the Republican National Committee in fundraising and cash on hand that may hamper your ability to win back the majority.
We've been making the case across the country why we're running ahead is because the number one thing we can do to put a check on this administration, to have a Congress that works for the American people, is to take back the majority in the House. Number one. Are there more things we can do? Absolutely. Number one thing we need to do is take back the majority in the House, take back the gavels.
But are you concerned that the DNC is not raising as much to help you with that effort?
I'm going to make sure that we have resources to support our candidates across the country. Our candidates are also raising strong. But yes, it's important that we have the resources to communicate, that folks know who's running for office, and that we fight the mis and disinformation that we know Republicans are going to put up there.
And my final question for you is about redistricting. Obviously, we've seen what Donald Trump and the Republicans in Texas did to try to pad their majority. We see what they're doing in places like Missouri and Indiana. We'll see how Ohio does with its court-ordered redistricting. And we've seen Democrats respond. Other than California, where should we expect you and the Democrats to look next to try, as I hear Kamala Harris this week, and I've heard this from other Democratic leaders say, Democrats want to fight fire with fire. Where is that next battlefield of fighting fire with fire after California for you all?
Well, first, let's be clear. The reason this is happening is because Republicans know they're losing. And instead of actually talking about the issues that matter to their communities and fighting for policies that do that, they want to rig the system. And the people of Texas didn't say, we want a new map. Donald Trump said, give me 5 seats. And Republicans said, yes, sir. That's what put us, and people hate this. So the people of Texas, in a bipartisan way, hate this. The people in Missouri, where they've also been pushing on a new map, hate this. We absolutely are going to use every tool we have to fight back. California, huge difference. It's going to the voters. So the voters are going to decide. Texas, they didn't go to the voters.
But California, you may be able to net 5 seats to your advantage to sort of respond to the Texas 5-seat gain. But if the Republicans keep going to other states and amassing numbers, I'm wondering where after California do you see a place that you can?
And Utah's been ordered to draw a new map. That was from previous litigation happening there. That gives us an opportunity. You've heard other governors like J.B. Pritzker or Wes Moore in Maryland and in Illinois. This is about taking away the voice of the people in other states too. When Republicans try to rig the system, they are trying to take away people's representation all over the country. So we absolutely are going to fight back. And I just say they should be careful what they ask for, because we are running 15 points ahead. People are angry. And when we have great candidates who are talking about the issues that matter, they're going to have districts where we can pick up seats, and we're going to fight in every one of those competitive districts to do just that and take back the majority in 2026.
Chairwoman Susan Del Bene, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's edition of the CNN Political Briefing. We'll be back with a new episode next Friday. Thanks so much for listening.
I'm CNN tech reporter Claire Duffy. This week on the podcast, Terms of Service. You may have noticed that tech platforms are increasingly trying to figure out how old you are. What's the deal with that? And should you be worried about handing over your information to these platforms to verify your age?
The internet we have right now is mostly anonymous. When we talk about age verification, it completely destroys the idea of online anonymity. Data is something that you can sell. It is something that you can exchange. It is a commodity nowadays. And so when we're thinking about privacy, your data is something that you want to hold as close to your chest as possible.
Listen to CNN's Terms of Service with me, Claire Duffy, wherever you get your podcasts.
us a day or two to think about it. Right, Donald? 3. You left back, you left front. Crazy boss, huh? Totally. Tweets. You see Brian's mood? How's it going? Twins. Tell you what, Cologne there too goes up and down again and has the benefit of originality. We've got that meeting. Yeah, you got the back, I'll got the front drivers. Roger, start without me if we have to. Would you drive me, Roger? I have a meeting with the table there. Can I explain this? That's what you're supporting up there. You're welcome to join. You should support me in my battle against my addictions. Your addictions being gambling and narcotics.
Okay, guys. Imagine this is a vault. All the alarms including from here. Side week and reinforced the floor.
You know, every attic record has a reaper. Nobody does that. The one who's no fault of their own maintains the attic when their habit often needs the attic. Yes, your enabler is you. Codependent. We have been for years. Look at you now. You're chasing me because you're mad that I'm chasing a big score. Maybe the cure starts. The cure? Yeah. Just need now. You want me to try that big one? If only to see how I'm doing. There's nothing I can do that will convince you that I'm clean. This is unhealthy, brother. Both fun.
The ceiling with the floor. Big taxis. Make sure your kids have things on the ceiling. You don't mind me. Right, bud?
Come on, come on. We can explore these issues further. I haven't given up on it yet. You will. Are you sure? The care starts and I'll say it. Say what? My name is Roger. I'm an addict. No, you say, my name is Bob and I'm an addict in recovery. And today is the first day of the rest of my life.
Bottle replaces the bill.